Hello, I'm Jo, and welcome to the Midlife Entrepreneur Podcast, a new show that's all about building a business in midlife. My guest this week is Claire van Bekkum, a communications specialist and the co-owner of Monuskin, a UK-based skincare brand that sells natural, professional and cruelty-free skincare. Claire spent over 20 years in publishing, carving out a successful career that began by selling fashion advertising for the Sunday Times. She went on to Harper's Bazaar, The Economist, and then Elle Decoration, and ended on a career high with 7 years as associate publisher of The World of Interiors at Condé Nast. In 2017, Claire swapped city life for the Cotswolds and joined her husband Laurent, owner of Monuskin. She embarked on a new chapter and became a midlife entrepreneur by association. Together they've redefined the brand, rewriting its story, redesigning packaging and launching innovative lines including Mui, a teenage skincare range. They've also expanded their portfolio with the additions of True Skincare, a natural vegan beauty brand offering high-performance products at affordable prices, and Carlton Professional, a leader in advanced beauty equipment for salons and spas. It's not your typical founder story, but I think it's one that will resonate for so many people who perhaps got more than they bargained for when they fell in love. Claire, welcome to the Midlife Entrepreneur.
Thank you for having me.
I'm fascinated by your story because I think it might be typical for lots of people, although it is not the typical entrepreneurial story. When I looked at your LinkedIn profile, it says you're head of communications, but I know that your role expands way beyond that. So how would you describe it?
I think head of communications is the starting point because I'm responsible for telling the story of the brand. But you will also find me on the factory floor, filling and labelling and capping. You'll find me pitching to new hotels and spas and salons. You'll find me talking to the team and liaising with my husband about what's going on with the business, from the big picture stuff to the minutiae. It's quite a lot to put on LinkedIn, so head of communications covers it. Yeah.
I love that answer. Because it is interesting, isn't it, that when we go into a partnership with somebody who's an entrepreneur, I suppose you can take the role of I'm not going to get involved at all and I'm not going to have any part in it. But it was really evident that very quickly you really pivoted your career quite massively into a completely new role because your background's publishing.
Yes, and my background was sales. The unglamorous way of saying is I sold advertising space for newspapers and magazines. I was pretty good at it. To be fair, Jo, I did actually have 1 year out, which I don't really talk about.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity to take a redundancy, which is the best exit if you're working for a big business. There's no better way to leave a business. And that gave me a year where I cultivated my skills of buying brown sugar, helping clean the church, and build my life outside of London. And I was really good at that. But it became very evident that Larry was running this business single-handedly and had been for about 20 years.
Larry's your husband.
Larry's my husband, or Laurent. And it dawned on me, not exactly overnight, but it became very apparent that I very much wanted to be a part of this story as well. And I needed to be responsible alongside his work, that I was also contributing in a really significant way. And it meant that I could bring in a skill set that either he would have had to have paid a lot of money for, or that he indeed didn't have himself. I was really nervous and really uncomfortable about doing it initially, because I really wasn't sure whether being married and running a business together was going to be in my DNA, shall we say. But actually, Larry was very patient and very kind, and I eased into the business quite gently. But then it became apparent that actually what I was bringing was actually helping turn the wheels and bring in sales. And I was contributing in a more significant way on a more frequent basis. And 7 years later, here I am.
Yeah, you're still doing it. And I'm so fascinated because, as you say, your background's in advertising and that's a skill in itself. Which other skills did you have to really quickly learn to be able to succeed in this role?
I think I had to rebuild my confidence quite quickly and believe in myself and know that the buck stopped with me. because I wasn't going to bed at night thinking that someone else was going to manage that part of the business or someone else was going to worry about that part of the business. And I had to learn the hard way that every little project you do, you have to really walk it to the door. And that's something that I've had to cultivate and be better at, not just assuming that one email or one phone call is going to make that particular part of the magic happen. You have to do everything, walk everything to the door yourself, because you are 100% responsible for achieving whatever it is you set out to achieve, whether it's a new set of photographs or a dialogue with a hotel.
So break down walking to the door. I love that phrase, by the way. That's great. But break that down for me. Maybe give an example of what that actually means.
Let's say that we were creating some new advertising for a trade magazine, and I would speak to the designer and the photographer. And I felt, and this is a real story about 4 years ago, that there was so much clarity in what I wanted him to achieve. And that I had done that. And then I went off and did the rest of my work. And 2 weeks later, the most terrible piece of creative rocked up in front of me. And actually, Joe, it was all my fault. Because when I look back at the communication, I had made masses of assumptions that he knew exactly what I wanted, but I hadn't made it clear at all. And I think that was quite a hard lesson, because I'd wasted his time and my time and our money. And thank God we had a great relationship that he went away and he recreated it with a much, much better brief from me, much more encouragement from me, much more communication from me, because you're kind of a silo when you're running your own business. It's not like you can pass it on to the marketing department or the sales department. You're the marketing department. You're the sales department. And that is quite a hard lesson to learn, that don't assume everything's just going to happen because of one instruction or one email, because it doesn't.
No, and I think this is the biggest lesson that I've been finding now that I'm on my journey. And I laugh about it a little bit because I had a team of 40, 50 people and they're all little mini experts in their area.
Yeah.
And so if I wanted to, I don't know, post a reel or find some analytics or whatever it may be, I just had to ask somebody and it would be done and delivered to my desk, or we'd have a conversation. You're right. These many hats that we have to now wear, and they come through experience. What you're describing is interesting, because as you were saying it, what was coming up for me was, of course, you know what good looks like because you were selling beautiful imagery and advertising for years and years. So you knew what worked and what looks good.
Yeah.
But this spotlights your lack of experience and how to brief in.
Yes, it really did. It really did. Because as you said, in my head was this glorious image that I thought I'd explained so brilliantly, and it was so easy to follow, and it wasn't at all. I hadn't transposed my thoughts correctly, communicated them properly, and that cost me time and it cost me money. And that was quite a hard lesson to learn. But boy, did I learn it. And that's why we use the phrase, both Larry and I use the phrase, we try our best to walk everything to the door, because we just can't trust everybody else. And that sounds a little harsh, but the buck will always stop with us.
Yeah. And it's important to communicate what you really want. And I think whether you're running a business or you're a leader in a business, I think the same applies.
Yeah.
So just going back a little bit to this, you have your year out, you're luxuriating in the redundancy package, which you're very lucky to have had. What was the conversation that was had between you that meant that you were able to, or wanted to step in and step up to the plate, but step into this role?
It was looking at what was going on in the social media, and it was very weak. And I felt that it could be a lot better, both visually and the level of communication that we were putting out. So we're going back 7 years ago now, particularly looking at Instagram, and it was pretty poor. And I just had this image that I could just do a better job. But I was really nervous about it, because I thought the minute I do that first post, the whole world's going to look at it. And suddenly we're going to sell 10,000 pots of moisture-rich collagen cream. Of course, you learn the hard way. It doesn't work like that at all. But that's how it started, slowly. And then I say this with tongue-in-cheek. Larry had this amazing image of building this wonderful office in the garden. It was just before COVID, so it was ironic. The timing was perfect. And I took a shine to this office. And I was like, actually, darling, that's such a nice office. Maybe I could have it. He was like, yeah, you could have it, but step up and pay for it. And I loved that honesty. I was like, okay, there's a challenge. So off I went. I left the kitchen, walked into the office in the garden, and I started looking at the marketing and the advertising, and I looked at the visuals, and I looked at the social media. And I really got to know the team a lot better. And I went into the factory and I worked on the shop floor and I went to exhibitions and I talked to spas and salons. And I even did an online course on beauty therapy. Because ultimately what we're selling is skincare to professionals.
I was about to ask, for the listeners that don't know about the brand, describe the evolution of the brand.
It's interesting how it started, because it was started by a lady called Suzanne Molyneux, we think about 42, 43 years ago. I'm vague on the time because these things disappear a bit. She was a beauty therapist, very successful one, based in Cheltenham. And she felt at the time the advocacy of skincare for her clients just wasn't good enough. So she created her own. And she took what she could from the earth. She was really one of the first therapists to take essential oils into the treatment room. And she called it Suzanne Molyneux, and it really blossomed. People absolutely loved it. Of course, it was very much results driven.
Yeah.
So yes, it was natural, and it was made using plants and herbs and minerals and clays, but it had a science background, and it was really delivering fantastic results. And it grew and it grew. And it seeped into the college market. So lots of people were training using Suzanne Molyneux, as well as lots of salons using it themselves. And my husband was in the city at the time, about 20 years ago. And he saw Suzanne Molyneux come across his desk as an opportunity to buy this business. And he knew absolutely nothing about skincare at all. But he did know how to run a business. He knew about profit and loss. And so he put it all on black.
Wow.
Left the city, moved to the Cotswolds in the middle of nowhere.
But what was the attraction of the skincare?
I think the attraction for Larry, perfectly honestly, Joe, is he didn't want to be told what to do every day.
Welcome to the midlife entrepreneur.
Yeah. He was working totally crazy hours in the city as a banker.
Yeah.
He was flying around the world, but he didn't really have any social life. Yes, he got all the spoils of it, but he wasn't in control of his own destiny. And he really had this kind of itch that he wanted to be his own master. And he could see the paperwork for Suzanne Molyneux, for want of a better term. And he could see how he could make this business run and expand it and grow it. And that's what he did.
Wow.
So he left London. He moved to the countryside. He also trained in level 1 and level 2 to be a beauty therapist.
Oh, sorry, we've got to just pause for a second. That is great.
Isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think that's great.
Isn't it? Because he can't communicate with his customers without knowing exactly what they want.
Has he given you a facial before?
Which is annoying.
I think that's on the list, Claire.
Yeah, I think I might put that down. But when you talk about ingredients and formulations and knowing your customer, he had to learn it from the grassroots.
Wow.
And he did, and he was very successful. And he ran the business very well, very successfully, with the same team for about 20 years. And then I came along and I just bought a totally different part to the business because I could see how much more beautiful it could look.
Yeah.
I could see how many more customers that we could attract. I could see who we could partner with in the media landscape. And I could learn how to tell that story on social media or with marketing. And that's where we are today.
So once you were on board, was that when the transition to becoming more of a retail brand? Because I know you're very much there for the therapist and you serve and service how many beauty therapists across the country?
Thousands.
Yeah, thousands of people use your products.
Thousands.
So now, of course, you have a website and you can buy at retail and you're on social media. It's retail, isn't it?
Yes, it very much. So there's sort of two parts to the business. There's the trade part, which is the business to business, and that has one website where you log in and you file and you learn how that works.
Yeah.
And then the other side is selling to women like you and I who have come across us or you've been advised to use us by your beauty therapist. And that's a totally separate business and a separate platform, and that's selling business to consumer. So we're not running two businesses, Joe, but we're definitely communicating to two different sorts of customers.
Wow, that must require quite a lot of consideration.
I think you have to think about all of those women that have chosen to buy Monuskin to treat their customers with and what it means to them. So what's the story for them? It's got efficacy because it's made by professionals for professionals. It's natural, which is a very overused term in skincare. It becomes a rather boring term, but what natural means is that you're using ingredients that you can take from the ground up. So it's quite a holistic skincare, but it's got a science background. Because if you're going to invest in a facial, it's quite hard to harvest those customers that want a facial. You want to make sure that they're leaving that treatment room looking so much better than when they walked in.
Yeah.
So glowing and luminescent radiance and all these words that we love to use. And then the other part of the story is selling a pot of Restoring Cream Rich or our cleansing balm to an end consumer because she loves skincare. She wants to buy something that's manufactured in small batches in the UK with beautiful ingredients, that's ethically sourced, and that ultimately is going to work.
Yeah. And would you say it's unusual to have skincare brands made in the UK?
Yeah, because ultimately we're a manufacturing business. And that's quite unusual in this country at the moment. We run a factory. We make everything by hand in small batches, and we label it and we cap it and we bottle it and we box it and we send it all out. And we have the most amazing team that does that for us. And I think it is quite unusual. But also I think it's one of the reasons that people like to buy us, because it's sourced in Britain, made in Britain, and we export all over the world.
Yeah.
But ultimately we're a very entrenched manufacturing business. We just make beautiful products.
Wow, that's so fascinating, because in a way, and I've been using some of your products for a while, the cleansing balm is definitely up there with one of my faves.
Okay.
And I really like body oil. So, and the smells are just delicious, aren't they? I don't know why I said aren't they? Of course, they're delicious, but I love those natural smells. And I love the fact that I'm putting something on my skin that isn't going to harm my skin.
Yeah.
But I feel like the UK, the homemade story is something that I hadn't quite latched on to. Maybe you've said it loads, but I haven't actually clocked it.
I think it's really interesting this day and age when people talk about clean beauty, which is a really big buzzword. We've been clean beauty since Susan started the business. We use as little water as we possibly can. We run our machines just through the day. They're not churning out through the night with thousands and thousands of products. Everything is recyclable. We are the original clean beauty company. But it's really interesting that you talk about the smell, because that's actually a big part of what we do. Because when you open up a bottle that's been produced 10,000 times in a big factory, and then you open up ours where we've made maybe a run of 200, that's where you really see the difference, because it's got this beautiful scent. And we want people to feel like they're in a spa or they're having a professional treatment that just happened to be standing in their bathroom before they go to bed.
I can really hear by the way you're talking about it, how entrenched you are in the success of the brand and how passionate you are to be on this journey. I think that's really coming across. And it's true that there are many people who will, in a partnership, in a relationship, will be there working away, beavering away, quite a silent partner. And I suppose because you're in the marketing and the comms, you are there to talk about the brand and be an advocate. And I can really hear that. I'm really fascinated, and I know the listeners will be fascinated. How do you successfully work and live with your husband?
Can you give me some tips? I don't know, you're the expert.
I'm just fascinated to hear what your tricks are and your tips, because it will have been a journey, I'm sure, and I'm sure there's some stories there. Is there anything you could share? It's not too personal.
No, of course not. Of course not. I would like to say a big thank you to my husband, because he started this business. He put everything in it, and then he's now sharing it. That's quite hard to give up. So he's now sharing something that he's cultivated, and that comes from a place of love and a place of trust. And we've always said that we're in love. How lucky are we that we're in love? But we also happen to like each other very much. So I think we're fortunate that there is a level of respect there about who's got what skills and who can bring what to the party. And I am not going to be creative, let's say, with the cash flow. That's the hardest part of running your business, is managing your cash flow. And not that I don't get involved in that, because we're having conversations about it all the time, but that's one of his fortes. He's not suddenly going to take over Instagram. He has no interest in that at all. He doesn't want to go and find influencers. Why would he? That's not what kind of floats his boat. And so we're really lucky, I think, that we both brought very different skill sets into the business. And we're lucky that we like each other. And we're really lucky that we have separate offices. I often think we should have a tannoy between our offices or something. But we're pretty good at giving each other enough space to get on with what you want to do.
Yeah.
And then knowing at that point where you will actually come together and work together as a team.
So what I take away from that is that you have, number one, trust and respect for one another.
Yeah.
Number two, because you've both had past careers and lives, and I'm gathering from what you're saying, you married when you were a little bit older.
Much older. I was 46.
So you got married at a time where you'd had plenty of experience in life, and I'm assuming he had too.
Yeah.
And so that sounds like it's lending itself to grown-up debate.
I hope so.
I know you're giggling because there's probably
lots of rows. Of course we do.
How do you resolve your rows?
We go on long walks and we have a proper chat. Or we go out for
Communication.
supper. And then we have a conversation in an open space where neither of us can storm off.
Communication.
Yeah.
Did that take time to polish that to a fine art?
It took me a lot longer than it did Larry. Because I'm very much, everything's fine, just don't worry about it. And Larry's actually, I'm interested to know why we made that decision or why we had that conversation.
Can I say you're being British and he's not British, is he?
He's half French and half Dutch.
Well, there you
He's got a
go.
very Latin quality about him. Whereas I'm like the classic ostrich.
Yeah.
And, that's been very successful. He's the one that makes us talk about things. I think it's about finding the right time as well, particularly if there's a challenging conversation to have about the business. What's the best time for us to have this talk? And that's one of the perks of being an entrepreneur and running your own business. You can have that chat whenever you want, pretty much. If you want to have that chat on a Sunday morning over a bacon sandwich, fill your boots. It hasn't got to be between that kind of 8 and 6 period.
Does that make it difficult not to bring work into every second of your day?
Work is in every second of our day. It can't not be, because what motivates us to live the lives that we want to live. Yeah, of course we switch off if we're watching a movie or we're going to see friends for supper or whatever. But work is in our lives every single second of the day. And you have to accept that. There is no switch off.
Yeah.
Because if we go on holiday, work comes with us.
I talk about boundaries a lot in coaching because when I'm working with executives and corporate clients, we talk about the boundary between work and your home life. And of course, you have that when somebody's paying you.
Yes.
And at home, you are allowed to have a home life.
Yeah.
Being an entrepreneur is so different. And I think you have to be prepared. And you also have to really love what you do, first of all, because it is going to be in every waking moment of your day. And I love what I do, and I'm excited by progress, and I'm excited by exploring things and the curiosity and learning. And sometimes I'm very frustrated by the things I have to know.
Yeah.
But I've chosen this, and therefore I am in it 100%. And I think, to your point, is that the life that you have with your husband and all the people that you support, you've chosen to do that.
We absolutely have. We absolutely have. And we feel very confident that it's something that we see in the long term as well. We're both in our 50s now, and there's no stop sign. We're just going to carry on and do what we want to do as best as we possibly can to give our team the best life that is possible and ourselves the best life as possible. And we live in a lovely home and we have a wonderful garden. And there are times, Joe, when I'd much rather be playing in the garden. But if I'm playing in the garden, I'm not selling moisturising cream. And that's my motivation. There will be time for me to play in the garden, and it's there for me to look at and love. But ultimately, I have to go to bed at night thinking, have we done everything we could possibly do today? Have we been the best we can? And I think you can't get too caught up in that, because otherwise
Perfectionism creeps in.
And as every good entrepreneur will tell you, don't let perfection be the enemy of good.
Yeah.
Because otherwise nothing gets done.
Yeah, and I love that quote, by the way.
It's a good one, isn't it?
I use it all the time. Yeah. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So many of my clients are too, and we work on this kind of this growth together. And I often will talk to myself and say, Joe, for God's sake, is it good enough? And if the answer is yes, just let it go.
Yes, I think you're right. And also, just what do they call that word? Pivot. Whenever you need to pivot, you just have to go with it.
What do you think you've learned about yourself on this journey of entrepreneurialism?
I suppose I've learned that I can learn new skills, which terrified me. In fact, I'm still learning meta, which does give me nightmares because it changes all the time.
I know.
I found an amazing tutor. Brilliant. And she's been by my side, holding my hand, explaining it to me.
Amazing.
Maybe people are listening to this going, God, Claire, that's really basic learning about.
Is that somebody who does that for a living?
She does it for a living. But yeah, I think it's about, okay, Claire, roll up your sleeves and learn something new. And particularly when you think it's something that much younger women are doing out there, that they live and breathe, or they've learnt it at college, or they've learnt it at their mother's knee, just realising that actually you're good enough to learn that as well, and you can do it. And if you learn it and you know how to do it, that's going to save you money.
Yeah.
We can't farm everything out. You have to do stuff yourself. And that's why it's really not unusual for me to be sticking a label on.
Yeah.
To be fair, I haven't done that for a few months now, but when you have suddenly a massive order and you've got to deliver 10,000 bottles of a particular product, you're damn right Larry and I are there sticking labels on and filling up boxes. By the way, I'm rubbish at it. Like Mr. Bean, I had to learn how to fill up a face oil, and face oil is a tricky thing to work with because it can leak, it gets everywhere. But learning to fill up a face oil bottle at precisely the right moment to turn it on and turn it off. And then imagine what it's like with face oil all over the factory floor, how easy it is to clear up. So, that's a skill I've learned.
I feel that's quite a funny behind the scenes.
Well, yeah, not so funny at the time, but clearing it up. But yeah, that's what you have to learn. And you never think in my old life, you're sat in the Wolseley having breakfast.
I love that. I love where your brain's gone, Claire, because you've gone from I have to learn meta to filling up face oil within literally one paragraph.
Because that's exactly what an entrepreneur's got to do with a small business. You've got to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the biggest challenges for anybody starting a business. If they're at midlife now and they're starting a business, number one, technology, you've got to lean into technology and try not to just cross your arms and say, oh, I don't do that. I'm too scared.
Intimidated by it. I am intimidated.
Oh, I am too. Believe me,
intimidated
I am
by
too.
it.
Doing this podcast has been the biggest challenge of, honestly.
You've done it.
I know, but I'm doing it. I wouldn't say it's necessarily beautiful and polished, but it is the biggest learning curve technology-wise of my entire career so far.
And I think it's terrifying because as you're learning technology, it's not going to go very well initially. And you get those sort of hot tears behind your eyeballs and your bottom lip, well, at least with me, you start to get really emotional and angry about it.
I just get really sweaty.
Very sweaty. Lots of tears.
I'm already sweaty, so I don't need more.
Lots of tears. A whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But, the satisfaction when it's done, and you can see those adverts rolling in, you can see people buying the product. Very satisfying. It's just about learning to take the stabilizers off. I have to be honest, I'm not quite there yet. But I hope to be soon.
I wonder if we ever really get there. I think what's an amazing thing is if you can sit, I always say there's this exercise you can do called top 3 things. And at the end of it, it's like gratitude, but I just think it's a bit more executive. But at the end of the day, you can list the top 3 things that you've learned or done or that have got you a little bit further ahead. Yeah. And I do this exercise every evening. And some evenings are very late at the moment because I'm doing this and it's not my day job.
Yeah.
And I will still try and lie there in my bed and think, okay, what are the top 3 things, like positive things? And it can be, oh, I found a new button that does something that I didn't know it did and it's going to make my life easier. Isn't that amazing? Or it can be that somebody who you never thought you'd reach has got in touch with you. Yeah. Because you've been brave enough to put things out there. And I think that can be really powerful as well. And this journey is never ending, and I hope it never ends.
I agree
because you
with
don't know everything. And also, can we just talk about meta for a second? And
Oh, yeah.
any tech, they're also changing on a weekly basis.
Exactly. And it's not intuitive.
No.
It's not intuitive, but it's just
Not to us, Claire.
I'm not entirely sure it's intuitive to me.
I think my 16-year-old would beg to differ because he has no fear.
I need to pay him to do it. I think it just, yeah. I think I've always been actually quite a fearful person, which people probably wouldn't believe because I had a really good, successful career and I was always out there selling. And I was very good at selling.
Very confident.
But yeah, I was always fearful. I was always fearful. And I think...
What were you fearful of?
I was fearful about failing.
Mm.
I was fearful about wasting people's time. I was fearful of very many of my bosses. They were formidable. But they had to be formidable.
Yeah.
Because that's why they did what they did. But I think you can pick up a lot from these women. And if you just take a little part of what makes them successful, and you build that up, you've got quite a good platform to work from. But I am fearful. And I just have to get on with it. What can I do? It's not going to stop me.
Could you have not done it?
I couldn't have not done it.
Why?
Because I couldn't possibly see Larry go out there every day doing what he does without me by his side.
Oh.
I had to be there. And his wingman. Why should he have to do everything?
Yeah, I love that.
And I felt I could actually come on board and contribute something quite meaningful rather than the same skill sets, which we touched on that in the earlier in the podcast. But I could bring something that wasn't there. And he let me do that. And it's proved to be very successful. So yeah, there's no way I would let him do it on his own. No way. That year was glorious. Don't get me wrong. That year out was a joy because I'd been...
Had you ever had a year out?
No. I had never had a year out. I hadn't have any children, so I'd never had any maternity leave. I got made redundant once from The Economist. It was a disastrous part of my career. And within 6 weeks, I was back working. So I'd never had a sabbatical or any time out. And that year, 2018, was really wonderful. It was really wonderful. But I don't need to go back and do it again, not in the near future.
And it was an adjustment year, I think, for you. If I look at your biography, you know, when you got married in...
I got married in 2018. I was 46, so I was pretty late to the party. And Larry was 44. We always say we were so late to the party. There's no time to waste.
Yeah.
We haven't got the gift of time to lark about and waste.
No.
We have to get on with it. We have to enjoy what we're doing and make the most of it.
And I suppose you being part of the business also gives you an understanding of what Larry is going through as well. So,
of course it does.
And you're a working girl. You've just described you've never not worked. Why would you sit there and just observe and not bring your experience to the party?
Exactly. And in fact, by me working alongside Larry, it took a while, but eventually he was telling me a lot more about what he was feeling and what was going on in the business and what the pitfalls were and what the challenges were, not just what the successes were.
Yeah.
And that was great. Problem shared, problem halved.
Yeah, you weren't getting the highlights reel anymore.
I wasn't getting the highlights. I was getting the whole lot. Yeah, the whole lot, which is brilliant because I need to know the whole lot. I can't just be there making pretty pictures. I have to know everything.
I could talk to you for hours, but I want to get on to our sort of leaving questions, only because you've given us so much honesty and advice, and it's a really fascinating story, yours, and I really do believe it will resonate. And I do believe that even if you don't become part of your partner's business, whether it is the man or the woman who are running the business, you're definitely going to be part of it in some way if you're in that relationship.
Yeah, it's absolutely unavoidable. And if you're not part of it, that's a little bit sad, I think, because that business is contributing to your life, big, small, or indifferently. It's part of your life. It's what you bring emotionally and creatively to the dinner table every night or every lunchtime or whenever you eat your supper. And it can't just be, this is what I did at work today. Well, this is what I did at work today. We're doing it together. So we're singing off the same song sheet.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. But thank you for sharing all of that. It's great. But just a quick question. Which part of you would you outsource if you could?
Obviously filling the face oils, which actually are now someone who knows what they're doing.
Thank goodness for that, Claire.
Total, very expensive mess. That's a really good question. I tell you what, Joe, I wish I could outsource running the house of it. Not the business. I'd outsource and I'd have someone making our home just permanently run smoothly and spick and span. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be a dream, wouldn't it?
That would be a dream.
So we're going to move on to the sort of final stage of the show. I want to leave the listener with some of your learnings and some of your advice, because I think it is so valuable for anybody who's just started out on this journey or maybe has come to a crossroads in their own entrepreneurial journey, and this may resonate. Whatever you're going to say may resonate. So it's called the 3-2-1s. 3 things you've invested in that have been worth every penny.
Our new factory. It took, I would say, at least a period of 10 years to actually bring it to life, because we've been in a factory, a very big factory. It was like a rabbit warren. Every room was used for something, much of it bringing nothing to the party. It was just space that we were filling. And boy, did we work hard to find a new location and to move everything into that factory. The logistics were very challenging. Larry unbolted every rack, every shelf, along with his team and removal men, and he brought it to life. And I think it was one of his greatest triumphs. We all know what it's like just moving house, but moving a factory, albeit down the road, and it's revolutionized how we all feel about going into work.
But were you in a location prior that was part of other production?
No, we
So
were
what do you mean by that?
always in our own factory.
Okay.
But the business had been in that factory since the get-go.
Oh,
And it was very tired.
Oh, I see.
And it was cold and it was drafty and it leaked. And it was too big for us. But the thought of moving all those thousands and thousands of products and the machinery and the equipment, let alone 40 years worth of paperwork.
Yeah.
So I would say in the last kind of 3 years, that's been our biggest investment and one of our biggest triumphs. Yeah.
Wow, that's mega.
And off the back of that, it pushed us to reinvent, redesign, remodel our websites, which also is really hard because although the other one was a bit clunky, we got used to it. Everybody knew how it worked. And you have to be pretty brave to wipe the slate clean and start again.
Yeah,
that's made a big difference. So we've now done it with four different websites because we own 2 other businesses, and that was hard, but worth every penny to get it right. Because it's our shop front.
It is.
And it has to work. You have to have every till open. You have to have every person on the shop floor making sure that sale is going to be seamless and effortless and a joy. Because I want people that buy Monuskin to enjoy spending their money with us. I don't want it to be a chore or a must-have. They're not buying new tyres for their car. They're not reapplying for their insurance. They're buying something that's going to make a difference to how they look and feel.
Okay.
And I want that to be a pleasurable experience. And so we have to make sure that our websites are effortless and seamless. And that takes a lot of work in the background.
It does, and it's a constant amount of work, isn't it? It doesn't really stop.
It doesn't really stop.
No.
But I don't want any customer to find it difficult,
Yeah.
too long, dull.
Yeah.
Just get in there and see what it looks like and have joy from buying something from Monu.
Wow, those are 2 major pieces of investment that you've done in the past year or so?
No, probably the past 3 years, but I feel like we're still in that pool of light of a new factory and the new websites. And I think it gave us both a lot of energy to go out and buy other businesses and be interested in what else was going on in the market.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And your third investment?
Would be our imagery. Yeah. It's finding those talented people out there that can make our skincare look really interesting and really appealing and tell the story.
Yeah.
And I have found the most amazing stylist and photographer. She's been with us now for about 5 years. And I found her through word of mouth, through an old contact from when I was at the World of Interiors. Her name is Ria, and she works on her own in Norwich. How else was I going to find her?
Yeah.
But she's been amazing. And she's delivering content that is worth its weight in gold, because I think it tells such a great story about who we are.
And does she work exclusively for you now?
No, she works for lots of other brands. She's had a baby last year, so her working hours have cut back dramatically. So I have to squeeze in slots when I can with her. In fact, I always book her up for kind of 4 or 5 times a year. But we bought another brand last year called True Skincare, which is really based on face oils. And it's a one-price product. So there's about 8 products in the portfolio, but each product is £19.50. So it's quite an easy transaction for someone. But I needed something completely different to what was going on with Monu. And Ria did that for us fantastically. So I wouldn't be without her. Yeah.
2 things you wish you could have done differently.
There was a period where we ran the sort of finance and sales side of the business from a separate office. We rented a very swanky, smart office in Cheltenham, and the factory was a sort of less than a 5-minute journey down the road. And we soon realised what a total waste of money that was. There was absolutely no point in doing it. And it was detrimental because it meant that the people that were on the shop floor creating the product and packing the product and making the product leave the building were separated from the people that were doing the paperwork and selling it and doing the finance. And we're one team. We're one big team. We're a very close team as well. So financially, it was silly. And for the morale of the business, it didn't do us any favours. So now everybody works in the factory, either upstairs or downstairs.
Nice.
Most people are going in between the two. And I have to say, it's a very happy team and it's a very loyal team.
How large is your team?
We're about 15, but we own another business called Carlton Professional, and that's based down in Worthing, and that's got 4 other people that work there. And we have some people that work for us as a freelance basis.
Wow, so it's quite a tight-knit team
It's a
delivering
tight
what you
team.
deliver.
Yeah, it is a tight team. Yeah.
And is there a second thing that you wish you'd done differently?
Yeah. I wish I could have met and married Larry 10 years earlier, because I think I would have had...
I love that, Claire.
One, we may have had a better chance to have had our own child. Larry has a beautiful daughter called Coco who's like my child, and I love her like my child, but it would have been lovely if we had been successful in having our own baby. And then another part of the business, I think I would have had the energy. I've always fantasized about Monu having their own spa. And we did talk quite seriously about it up until a few years ago. And then I think we realized that actually we're a manufacturer that sells online, and that's our success. We're not a shop owner. And I feel that we need to focus on the bits that we know we're really good at, rather than being distracted. What could have turned out to be a little bit of a vanity project. And I don't want to open up a beauty therapist salon on the high street on a Saturday morning anymore.
No.
I think that would have been the reality. Someone wouldn't have turned up and I would have had to roll my sleeves up on a Saturday morning or worried about it. And I think that comes with being 53 and knowing what I'm good at, rather than opening up a salon. Never say never.
Yes,
But
hold that thought.
yeah.
But also I'm wondering whether that comes from your background. You probably spent, if you were in publishing, a large chunk of your career going into retail spaces and loving them and knowing how
I'm constantly
effective they can
surprised.
be.
Yeah, I'm always surprised at how rubbish some places. And I'm always amazed that people don't see that attention to detail that me is glaringly obvious. And I want to go in and tell them, it's so simple. Give me half an hour and I can make this place look so much
That's your
better.
experience, Claire.
But yes, it is. It is. So yeah, I think I won't be opening up a salon in the next 18 months, put it that way. I don't think I'll ever open up one. But it was a pipe dream a few years ago.
I love that. That's a really interesting thing to share, because that also really demonstrates how sometimes what we think is a really great idea, if you were really honest about what your business does.
Yes.
And I think that's about staying in your lane.
Exactly. And I think it would have been terrifically expensive to run, fantastically time consuming. And I know we would have done it brilliantly. But as you said, let's stay in our lane. We're a manufacturer that sells online. We won a competition last year. We were best e-commerce business in the West Country. And that was phenomenal because the competition was huge. And here we are winning that. And I think that was probably one of Larry's proudest moments.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Congratulations,
fantastic.
by the way.
Thank you.
I also want to ask who was in your category. You won't tell me, will you?
I'm not going to tell you.
I have to look it up. One person you'd like to thank. You thanked your husband, and that makes sense. And we often want to thank family members. But is there a person that has been really significant in this journey for you?
Yes, there is. Emma Redmayne, who was my last boss at Condé Nast. And she had that steely determination that Condé Nast women tend to have. She is positively swan-like in business, but also brilliantly ruthless in the nicest possible way. And anything is possible with Emma. And she loves to sell. And I think I learned a lot from her about being proud to sell and about believing in yourself and about doing it with grace and kindness, but with tenacity and confidence. And whereas I frequently would have sort of anxiety or fear leaking out, Emma never had that. Or doesn't have it. She's still very successful now. And I often find myself saying, just be a bit more Emma.
Be a bit more Emma. What do you think she has then that allows her to have that confidence and that sort of certainty and steadfastness?
I think she's a great believer in herself. She's got the most amazing brands that she works for. And she's worked tirelessly to completely get under the skin and understand who her customers are and what they want. And she's also the woman that taught me about making sure that when you're buying something expensive, that it needs to be a completely pleasurable experience. And buying an advert in a magazine is really expensive.
Yeah, it is.
And quite rightly, because of all the value you're getting. I'm not going to go down that route. But
you're going to sell it to me now, Claire, aren't you?
I'm not going to sell you a page.
And I'm not going to buy a page today, but you'll have to call me back.
But I think there's so much to be said this day and age about how hard we all work for our money and how we want it to be pleasurable when we're spending it on something for ourselves. And I think we try and do that really well at Monu. And so we have many customers that still just want to pick up the phone and put their order on over the phone. They don't want to go on their phone or their tablets to do it. That's not how they communicate. That's not how they run their business. They want the personal touch. And I want to be able to make sure that myself and the team, and I often take those calls, are being the best we can and giving them that personal touch and making sure that they know that we completely value that purchase, whether it's a pack of vitamin C sheet masks or 20 packs of vitamin C sheet masks. They're all really important to us and to me and to the team. And I think Emma really helped me understand that and value that.
Wow, what an amazing sort of recognition of her leadership. But also, isn't it incredible how somebody in our career can have such a significant impact on how we do things and what our future looks like?
Yeah, and as I said, she does it with great humour as well. And it's really important to have a funny bone when you're an entrepreneur, because the brown stuff hits the fan on a pretty frequent basis. And you have to learn to find a laugh at the end of the day and kind of get on with it, because life is funny and there is often a disaster. But you've got to work your way through that, haven't you?
Yeah, you got to laugh at the oozing oil all over the factory floor. Otherwise,
there,
you'd
Jo.
cry.
It's probably still there. It's probably left an indelible stain. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Claire, for sharing all of your experience, your journey, your insights, your knowledge and your advice. It's been a really insightful conversation.
Oh, thank you.
And I hope it resonates for lots of people.
I hope so too.
I loved having you on the show, so thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into the show. And if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to click follow on your favourite podcast platform and leave a review. It really helps us reach more listeners just like you. Finally, if you're a midlife entrepreneur with an interesting story to share or would like to nominate a guest, you can do so via my email. It's inquiries@joglynnsmith.com. All information will be in the show notes. See you next time.